Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. More potential burial sites identified on the grounds of a former BC residential school.
It's very challenging not to get emotional.
What's next for the Williams Lake First Nation in their investigation? Plus, a big rent hike for students at UBC.
For one entire year, that's around $1,200 more in rent.
What's being blamed by the university for the increase and why students feel it's another blow. And borrowing is getting even more expensive with another interest rate hike.
People are concerned about how they're going to be able to afford their homes and if they're going to have to sell this year.
The central bank says despite the pain now, the strategy is working to bring inflation down.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Anita Bathe. We begin tonight with more potential unmarked graves found at the site of a former residential school in BC. These are the results of the second search by the Williams Lake First Nation. The CBC's Brady Strachan was there.
A sacred fire that will burn for 4 days.
It's no longer being afraid to be out. Basically out in the world, out in public.
This community unites as it confronts horrible truths of the past.
I will say a prayer for the children who cry.
The Williams Lake First Nation announced 66 potential graves on top of the more than 90 discovered last year at the site of a former residential school.
Some Canadians question the legitimacy of the investigation data, whether it be geophysical, documentary, or forensic. To those who are skeptical, we assure you that there is an overwhelming abundance of evidence.
Thousands of Indigenous children were forced to attend St. Joseph's between the late 1800s and 1981, with numerous reports of abuse, rape, starvation, and death. Last March, during a visit here, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau pledged funding, which was used for this second survey using ground-penetrating radar to explore 16 hectares of land near the school. Now the First Nation must confront a difficult decision.
To date, we have identified 48 different nations that had kids attend the St. Joseph's mission. 48 nations to potentially engage with when we start talking about excavation and exhumation is a scary thought.
Those who attended the school say the way forward is through the cultural practices that were once banned.
Releasing each individual to let it go, because many of us have been hanging on to it. Go ahead and cry. Go ahead and sing your songs. Go ahead and hug someone.
The way forward, he says, is supporting one another as they deal with the trauma of the past. Brady Strachan, CBC News, Williams Lake First Nation.
To housing now, and a big blow to UBC students living on campus. Their accommodation is about to get a lot more expensive, and many are already trying to balance studying and work to help pay their bills. As Saurabh Sandhu reports, the university blames inflation and rising costs.
Kevin Sway is a second-year engineering student at UBC. On top of studying, he works part-time delivering food to help cover his expenses. But it soon may not be enough to pay for his on-campus housing.
I'm just going to have to work more part-time shifts. I'm just going to have to make up that difference, unfortunately, to make ends meet.
In a recent email, UBC warned students to prepare for rent hikes up to 8% starting in April.
For one entire year, that's around $1,200 more in rent, and that $1,200 could go towards tuition or several months of groceries.
BC's tenancy laws allow only 2% annual rent increase in 2023, but the university student housing contracts are renewed every year and not subject to an annual cap.
Probably going to be a trend, like it'll probably go up in the next few years.
The increases are due to several factors, including catching up from 2 years of 0% increases during COVID, high rates of inflation, and needed investments in the 10-year housing growth plan to provide housing for more students in the future. UBC claims this year's increase will be between 3.5 and 8%. And even with that, its student housing rates are still lower than the same market rental rates.
We have very severe housing shortage, especially in the rental market. And that's showing up with very low vacancy rates and high rents.
Pavlov says due to subsidies, tuition rates in Canada are lower than other countries. But what students save in school fees is often eaten up by housing costs.
6 to 8% doesn't seem outrageous. It seems in line with the costs of everything else.
But many like Sway say such a hike is simply too much.
I do think they are hoping to compensate for the 2 years of rent freeze that we got over the pandemic, but I still don't think this was a wise choice by the university at a time of sky-high inflation.
Other students say they may try to find work, cut their expenses, or ask for help from their parents.
We can try to live off campus, but it's not much more affordable than this.
Saurabh Sandhu, CBC News, Vancouver.
The City of Vancouver could soon do away with fees for plastic and disposable cups. Ken Sim and his ABC Vancouver slate have voiced their intentions to rescind it. And as John Hernandez reports, there's still no public data on how effective the policy has been keeping cups out of landfills.
It's another thirsty lunch rush in downtown Vancouver, and there's no shortage of disposable cups to be seen.
I have a vanilla bean frappuccino from Starbucks.
I do have a refillable one in my car, which I kind of forgot to take.
The Vancouver Cup bylaw, a 25-cent fee for disposable cups, has been in place since January of last year. The goal, to reduce the up to 82 million cups that have been estimated to enter city landfills annually. But critics and consumers say it isn't clear if it's changed buyer behavior.
It's kind of just an extra on top that I always just pay for. It's a bit of an inconvenience.
To be honest, 25 cents is like not really a lot, but you know, it definitely adds up.
Some members of City Council say it's been costly but not effective.
What we're hearing, of course, anecdotally at this stage, because we've just crossed that 1 year mark, is people are spending hundreds of dollars on these fees that add up.
Ken Sim's ABC Vancouver slate, which has a majority on City Council, has pledged to axe the fees this year.
What we've heard from the business community and residents is the cup fee just ain't working, that it's punitive. And so that's why we're committed to getting rid of this, the cup fee by this summer.
The Retail Council of Canada supports the move, saying the policy was costly for businesses from the start.
You had to have your system reprogrammed, not once, in fact, but twice to charge the cup fee. And then you had to change menus, menu boards, platforms on delivery apps.
ABC Vancouver has pledged a more education-oriented approach to keep garbage out of landfills. Meanwhile, city staff say they're still assessing data to see just how effective the cup bylaw has been. Green councillors who were in favor of it are calling for patience to see what the numbers might say.
I would hope that they would, respect the staff process enough to allow them to report back. I know this report's coming in a matter of months.
A policy that's likely cost Vancouverites millions of dollars could soon be headed for the garbage bin. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
A registered massage therapist in Vancouver has been reprimanded for sending an anti-COVID vaccine email to patients last January. The College of Massage Therapists of BC says Ian Glass used his clinic's database to email more than 200 people, criticizing the efficacy and safety of vaccines, as well as the proposed mandate for health professionals. It also says recipients' emails were shared with others because Glass didn't blind carbon copy them. Glass has agreed to a 2-day suspension and education on professional ethics and boundaries, according to the college. CBC has not heard back from Glass or the clinic for comment. The Bank of Canada is bringing in another interest rate hike as it tries to bring down sky-high inflation. It's likely the last hike for now, but as Nisha Patel reports, there's no comfort to some who are trying to hold on to their homes.
Another interest rate hike, but a new message.
We've raised rates rapidly, and now it's time to pause.
Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem says soaring prices are coming under control, with a forecast that inflation will fall to 3% by the middle of this year.
We are certainly seeing clear evidence, and that has reinforced our confidence that inflation's coming down. But look, we do have to be humble. There are a number of risks out there.
So he warned that if inflation surges again, the central bank could hike further. For now, though, higher interest rates are having an impact.
We are going to see some pain in the labor market, some pain in the housing market and the economy as a whole.
But with interest rates at their highest level in 15 years, mortgage brokers say it's a harsh reality for those with variable rate mortgages or who need to renew this year.
It's really getting messy out there, so people are concerned about how they're going to be able to afford their homes and if they're going to have to sell this year.
In February, I'll be paying a total of $5,077 every month.
That's keeping Mesbah Matab up at night. Since buying a home with a variable rate mortgage in 2021, his payments have jumped $1,600.
A lot of things had to be cut, sacrifices made in our lifestyle. So it's basically like I've taken a big pay cut. That's what I feel like.
Matab's family has stopped eating out and taking holidays. He says he had planned for higher rates, just not this much, this fast. And he's lost confidence in decision makers.
I would rather pay $10 a bread and have a house and a job than, be jobless and houseless and bread comes back to $2.
For now, he's taking it day by day. But if his finances get any worse, he'll be faced with some tough choices.
So interest rates at these levels may be the new normal. And while hikes may be on pause for now, the Bank of Canada governor also said it's far too early to talk about interest rate cuts. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Tonight, a new report is highlighting the lack of affordable housing for seniors in Vancouver's Chinatown neighborhood. It also points to the need for more culturally appropriate resources and care. As Yasmin Gandam tells us, there are calls for the government to step up and help.
The report gives a snapshot at the availability of SROs and non-market housing units in the Chinatown and downtown East Side neighborhoods. Currently, there are 12,788 units of affordable housing in the area, of which only 2,095 are designated as senior housing spaces. Vancouver-based Immigrant and Refugee Services Agency Success says finding options for vulnerable populations like seniors is incredibly important.
They want safe and they want a very affordable and comfortable environment so that they can enjoy the rest of their life while they're living in Vancouver, Chinatown.
The report was prompted by the initial private sale in early 2021 of Grace Seniors Home in Chinatown, which could have evicted 70 Chinese seniors. Those evictions were averted when BC Housing stepped in to buy the building. This uncertainty forced Tim Lamb's grandfather to move out of the neighborhood after over 30 years.
And he has a tough time connecting with other people. He lacks the ability to walk around, visit his stores, visit services, have a sense of independence that a senior wants to have.
The report finds culturally appropriate spaces and resources are crucial.
It's the language, it's your friends. So we do want to create these spaces for seniors to age in place.
But Tan says there is space in Chinatown that could be developed.
McLean Park, there's actually a surface level parking lot that could be turned from just parking into housing, put that parking lot underground. Or there's also private sites like 105 Kiefer or Tosi's Market that could be acquired.
Success and other community partners behind the report hope for more of a commitment from government to address the unique needs of Chinatown seniors. The goal is to develop 1,000 existing units coupled with 1,000 new ones by the year 2030. Yasmin Gandam, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, the province is putting forward new protections to help preserve more than 50,000 hectares of temperate forests outside of Revelstoke.
The Kamaplu is one of BC's greatest treasures. It's home to old-growth cedars and hemlock trees that are 4 meters in diameter. For reference, that's 2 of me, but sideways. These trees are more than 1,000 years old.
The Nkamaplu Valley was included in logging deferrals in the 2020 Old Growth Strategic Review. The province is partnering with First Nations for the new conservancy, which will span over 58,000 hectares. For reference, that's approximately the size of 150 Stanley Parks. And Coastal GasLink pipeline is being fined again for breaking environmental rules. The Environmental Assessment Office has issued the pipeline a more than $213,000 fine. It's for failing to answer the recurring issues of erosion and sediment control measures that were identified during a pipeline inspection last February. This is the third time Coastal GasLink pipeline has been fined. Once finished, the pipeline will deliver natural gas from Dawson Creek to Kitimat for export. To a story now about lending a helping hand. For a Princeton couple, it was just a regular drive to Penticton for a doctor's appointment yesterday. That is until Angie Hilmer and Kirk Barnhart spotted a moose in distress on the side of the road. That's when they decided to jump into action to help free the animal.
Oh, I didn't see her. Right there, right there. Oh, poor thing. She's stuck in the fence.
Anyway, so he said, oh, look, there's tracks in the road. And it's fresh because it was snowing. And he said, oh, it's a moose track. So anyway, we were probably going about a kilometer. And then he goes, oh, she's up. There it is.
Well, on the drive to Penticton, we get to run into a moose that needs help. Look at it. It's all tangled in...
I just figured, well, I got to get this moose out of here.
It's okay, baby. It's all right. We'll help you.
Actually, I saw it when she tried to jump over the fence. She slipped and wasn't able to clear it. Now, if she would have just tried to walk over it, she probably could have walked over it, no problem. But I don't think she could move at all because I think her front hooves were in there and the back hooves were. The one was really tight. The other one wasn't too bad. So I was able to get the one off fairly easily, but the second one, it was, I guess, because when she got tangled up, then she fell over, sort of like tightened up the wire around her hoof.
Careful she doesn't kick you.
So yeah, it took all the effort I had to bend that wire off.
She's very good. Good girl. Off you go, baby. You're welcome. I know she's thankful. You get better, Phil? I did.
Gosh, it's almost hard to watch. As
I know, that was my real face.
I know, me too. I think we both got caught there with that. Oh, at least she's free now. Goodness.
Yeah, I know. And I was looking to see if there was a little look back, thank you, human. But yeah, I think that she was very
just trying to get out of there as fast as
exactly. Yeah, that is so nice to see. We owe him one. So yeah, I probably won't watch that again because it was emotional, but a really happy ending. I wish we had seen more of the blue sky today. I know we didn't get much. It was dry between rounds of drizzle. This was our break day. Temperatures are quite mild, 6 at YVR, 7 out towards Pitt Meadows. Fairly seasonal right now, but we are watching for that deep freeze in the next couple of days. Here's the satellite and radar right now. So it is dry out there. It's actually just starting to clear, but we don't have the sun anymore, obviously. Oh, I wanted to mention, though, we are gaining about a minute and a half of daylight each day this week. And by the end of the week, that'll be closer to 2 minutes. So it's happening. High pressure is tracking back out to sea for tomorrow, so we're really going to see the drizzle return. And I just wanted to get you through the next 24 hours. Keep your eye on these green patches. This is overnight, pausing you tomorrow morning. The drizzle is back, and it'll sort of increase intensity through the day. Plan on being in a cloud for your entire Thursday. It's Friday that will sink down, and I think we'll see the sunshine. But one more drizzly one, Anita. I'll talk more about that cold snap coming up.
Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Well, online deal hunters are once again being reminded to use caution after one Burnaby resident was duped into buying a counterfeit Rolex off someone he met on Craigslist. The exchange happened in November, according to RCMP. The man got in touch with the seller about an ad for a Rolex Wimbledon. He was told it came with a receipt and certificate of authenticity. It cost $10,000. It was only after the purchase the buyer became suspicious. An appraisal confirmed his worst fear, that watch was fake. Police are reminding the public if something seems too good to be true, well, it probably is. This year's deadly avalanche season has climbers, skiers, and snowmobilers reconsidering backcountry trips. So, how is climate change impacting mountain safety, and do we need to rethink our approach? That's next. Thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream. The Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra recently put on a production of the 5-act drama Peer Gynt. And for many Star Trek fans, the play includes a familiar face. Take a look.
He's here, he's there, he's here again, surrounding me just when I think I've escaped. Hit me if you dare.
My love of classical music, well, I think my love of classical music probably started because of the family I grew up in. My father was the solo principal oboe player for the Philadelphia Orchestra. I spent a great deal of time down at the Academy of Music, listening some of the times and running around the rest of the time. Come to a symphony orchestra setting is that you are enveloped in sound. And there's an emotional journey that you take. And so we're all working to make that emotional journey go from the beginning to the end. And there's some very, very heartfelt and heartbreaking songs in it. And experiences. And we all are working that way. Daniel, the conductor, is doing that. All the musicians are doing that. I think it was B.B. King or somebody like that who said, after the first few bars, if you're not telling a story, you need to get off the stage. We're all telling a story.
He's almost crying, almost song. Hopes and dreams rolling all around.
I overheard in his interview that he complimented the city for having great symphony orchestra and a wonderful new music festival. And I reached out to him and I said, well, man, how about having a dinner together? And one thing led to another. And he said, we need to do something together. And now we're doing this. And it's great. I mean, he's a great actor. He has a great experience in directing also shows like that. He's done this with the orchestras like LA Phil and New York Philharmonic and Sydney. And he's an animal in front of the audiences. He knows how to deal with them and to be there. And he's very gracious to the musicians, and there's a lot of wonderful energy.
This is the perfect concert to come to. This is not stuff where you kind of go, gee, I kind of didn't get it or something like that. This is very accessible music. It's storytelling music. I couldn't think of a better concert for somebody who's not familiar. And if they really have to walk through the timeline of Star Trek, it's just, Q doing another gig.
It's been a tragic season for winter backcountry enthusiasts. Avalanche Canada has warned the snowpack this season is unusually weak and highly dangerous, with conditions usually seen once every 1 or 2 decades. That's because of the long periods of drought followed by cold weather and snow. Now, mountain adventurers are worried about the effects of climate change on mountain conditions and new and more unpredictable risks. To help make sense of the trends, I'm joined live tonight by Pascal Hogely. He's the Industrial Research Chair in Avalanche Risk Management at SFU. Pascal, what avalanche trends are we seeing?
It's actually quite difficult to associate trends in avalanche risk with climate change because that relationship is quite complicated, because it really depends on how these storms arrive and what the sequence of weather events is.
So is climate change playing a factor in modeling and lawn casting avalanche seasons?
I think we have some ideas what will happen in the future in terms of like avalanche hazards going to decrease at low elevations where we're going to expect warmer temperatures and less snow. But we can't really predict what's going to happen at high elevations because we don't know that relationship yet between how frequent these extreme weather events are and climate change.
So perhaps if we start to see these, the avalanche risk next year be sort of similar to what it is this year and the year after, then you can start to pinpoint those trends. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and I think what we can expect is that we're going to have more unusual winters. Like it will just really, it can change from year to year.
What are ways that we can better track what's happening out there so that we can actually make better predictions about the risks?
Like there's already lots of people making observations out there. We just need to basically have longer time series to better understand those relationships.
Pascal Hoegele, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
It's a concerning trend playing out across Toronto's transit system. A rash of violent incidents affecting workers and passengers. We'll tell you how the city is responding next.
Hockey seems to be the most popular thing up here in Vancouver. We've got some Pro Set Series 2, and we got Platinum, and we got some Parkhurst. And we got
the sports card business really isn't any different from any other business.
Well, we'll see what we got. Yeah.
There are buyers, and there are sellers.
If he gets any good cards, we keep them. No. We'll automatically do some trading. Ooh, I know. Don't you really like those? He's more than just an average all-star. He's a frequent all-star. Oh, Monty, this is a great pack. Nice package, eh? Definitely worth buying. $1.75. I'll buy that one from you then. Okay.
Ed Smith, the owner of Sports Card Heaven in East Vancouver, is both. And recently he turned a fast food promotion into fast cash.
The very best of the NHL. The McDonald's Upper Deck All-Star Collector Series. Each pack of 4, 29 cents with any soft drink purchase.
I think it's probably the best thing they ever did, and if they do it again next year, they'll see a very big increase of business. I think they should do it almost every year.
Okay, let's go get the numbers. How many packages did you buy?
1,300 packages.
At 29 cents per?
9 cents a package.
Went south of the border and sold them for?
$1 a package without a problem.
So the cash register dings up what?
About 700 easy.
McDonald's restaurants declined to comment on the cashing of their cards.
The most popular ones seem to be Wayne Gretzky, Brett Hall.
Smith still has a few complete sets of the promotional series that he plans to peddle for profit. What do you think about this entrepreneur behind the counter here buying McDonald's cards for 29 cents and selling them for $1 or $1.25?
I'm sure everybody thought that, why didn't I do that? Because in this business, everybody thinks that they're going to try and get the one-upmanship on everyone else, but when they actually see a success like what Ed did, I term a success. I think it's pretty good.
Doesn't bother you?
Not at all. No.
So if I go to McDonald's, get my cards, come in and see you, how much are you going to buy them from me for?
75 cents easy.
And then you'll turn around and sell them for?
For $1 to $1.25 right now. And the price goes up every day. So as time goes by, the price will continually go up. We've heard guys down in Texas actually paying $75 a set and $5 a package.
You put a little sign on your door, over 100 sold?
Land Back is a CBC original podcast where we uncover land theft in Canada and look at how Indigenous people are taking it all back.
And that's what empowered nations and empowered people to just literally steal land.
This is a consequence of your actions.
And it's time to give land back.
Land Back is out now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
A series of violent attacks against workers and riders on public transit across the country has triggered calls for a national safety task force. As Katie Nicholson reports, that came hours after 2 workers for Canada's busiest system were attacked.
Suzanne Barnes is a regular transit user.
I often see people who seem to be in distress and sometimes shouting and having some challenges.
Almost every day, a new incident. Transit workers chased by a person with a syringe. A 16-year-old stabbed on this bus. A woman stabbed multiple times by a stranger on this streetcar. Reports of people shoved towards subway tracks. And a TTC worker shot at with a BB gun. But it's not just happening in Toronto. There are thousands of attacks on staff coast to coast, says the National Transit Workers Union.
Assaults, being spat on, being punched, being pushed, being threatened and intimidated are all commonplace events in our transit system right across this country.
The union wants a task force to tackle safety, while Toronto's mayor hopes a national mental health summit could help address part of the problem.
And I think it's high time there was a meeting like that.
The Prime Minister also willing to help.
If there's a role for the federal government to step up, we will no doubt step up.
In Vancouver, where transit police ride the rails,
we are absolutely seeing an increase in calls related to mental health, specifically on the system.
Crimes on transit have gone down, but calls to help people in crisis are skyrocketing, she says.
We deal with a lot of unhoused people.
That's why mental health supports alone won't solve the problem, according to this psychiatrist.
We often talk about people falling through the cracks. We don't have cracks. We have caverns. We have entire systems that are not there for people.
Staying in Ontario, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his cabinet have wrapped up their 3-day retreat in Hamilton. The economy and healthcare dominated the session, but as the CBC's David Cochrane reports, there was also talk about Canadian military aid to Ukraine.
The cabinet retreat ended early as stormy weather descended on Hamilton. But before he left, the Prime Minister called another meeting, this time with the premiers.
I invited the premiers to join me in Ottawa on February 7th for a working meeting on health care.
A working meeting the premiers worked hard to get, a chance to jolt a healthcare system in crisis and in need of reform. Trudeau is pitching a fix that includes an across-the-board increase in health funding and then a series of one-on-one deals with provinces and territories to meet their specific needs.
Different regions get to respond to their needs in different ways, and they get to respond in ways that are better suited to their particular situations. That's certainly something that we don't think applying a one-size-fits-all across the country is the best way to do it.
The meeting itself is a clear sign of progress after months of public squabbling and bickering.
Or maybe we're coming around the final lap. I mean, pick your analogy. Maybe we're in the third period. It looks like we're tied. You pick the analogy you want.
So an emerging plan for the health crisis and the promise of more help for the crisis in Ukraine. Key allies such as Germany, Britain, and the U.S. have agreed to send battle tanks to Ukraine. Canada wasn't ready to join that effort today, but the Prime Minister suggested news was coming soon.
I won't be making an announcement today, but I can tell you we are looking very, very closely at what more we can do to support Ukraine.
Canada has about 80 Leopard tanks on hand, but only about 24 will be fit for the battlefield in Ukraine. The government has asked the military to do an assessment of how many tanks can be spared, and they hope to have an answer in a matter of days. David Cochrane, CBC News, Hamilton.
Another meeting to tell you about. The Commons Committee on Industry and Technology met today about the proposed Rogers takeover of Shaw Communications. It comes after the Federal Court of Appeal dismissed the Competition Bureau's bid to stop the deal yesterday. Among those addressing the committee were the heads of the two telecom companies. Shaw's president insisted the merger will be good for competition, and he said most of the opposition has been coming from Canada's other big telecos.
TELUS and Bell have been the most vocal opponents of these transactions, challenging them in every possible forum. As a result of the regulatory process, when these transactions close, TELUS and Bell will face the competition that they fear most.
Canadians pay some of the highest cell rates in the world, and there have been many complaints that the merger will reduce competition in the cell phone market. The companies hope to complete the deal by the end of the month. Federal Industry Minister François-Philippe Champagne still says that he needs to approve the merger. Well, it took a lot of pressure from Ukraine and its allies, but today Germany announced it will provide Ukraine with Leopard 2 battle tanks. It clears the way for other European countries to send tanks, and today the U.S. said it will also contribute. The CBC's Chris Brown is in Ukraine with the reaction.
In a Ukrainian city still reeling from a horrendous Russian attack, there was finally a reason for a small bit of elation. 46 were killed in Dnipro just over a week ago by a Russian missile. Natalia and her son Stanislav were left homeless. This is huge support, she said, of Germany's decision to send Leopard 2 tanks. The Leopards are to protect Ukrainians, said her son. I think this decision will help us win, said Andrei Belyaev. Russia is a terrorist state on a global scale. On social media, Ukrainians campaigned to make the tank deal happen, wearing leopard clothing, dressing up in spots. For a while, Germany appeared to be wavering, even as the pressure mounted. Finally, its chancellor rose in parliament.
Wirklich Krieg in Europa.
There really is a war in Europe, not far away from here in Berlin, said Olaf Scholz, as he asked Germans to trust him and resist fearing the move could trigger a bigger confrontation between Russia and NATO. But many Germans are fearful, so Germany only acted after the United States also agreed to send its advanced Abrams tanks too.
The United States has worked in lockstep with our allies and partners around the world to make sure the Ukrainian people are in the strongest possible position to defend their nation.
Of course, Vladimir Putin's parallel reality has Russia as the victim. He told university students he's saving what he called historical Russian territories under threat. The new tanks will burn, vowed a Kremlin spokesman. If other European countries send their Leopards too, the tanks could be a game changer on a battlefield that's become difficult for Ukraine, even though Russia has suffered immense casualties too. Ukrainian senior soldier Kirilo Dorlenko has just returned from the front, where he works as part of a command team. The next step will be training the tank crews. The ammunition is new, and you need to be very familiar with how to use the tanks tactically and understand how they work. Ukraine is getting powerful new weaponry, but the logistics are challenging, including transporting tanks almost twice as heavy as any they have now, as well as fixing and fueling them. Chris Brown, CBC News, Dnipro.
And sources tell CBC News the Canadian Army is considering sending 4 Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine. One source says Canada is likely to send Ukraine the A4 variant of the tank, which is the oldest in this country's military inventory. No final decision has been made, but the government could make an announcement on it as early as tomorrow. Well, for people living in Russia protesting against this war in Ukraine, it can be difficult, even dangerous. But some Moscow residents are commemorating the Ukrainians killed recently in the fighting. Briar Stewart has more on what they're doing.
It's an act of tribute and of sympathy, but with police not far away, placing flowers here is also a symbol of defiance. There are no other possibilities, this woman says. It's the only way to express one's protest. For days, people have been laying flowers and stuffed animals at the foot of a statue dedicated to Ukrainian poet and playwright Lesa Ukrainka, a memorial in response to this, a deadly missile attack in Dnipro. But in Russia, any condolences toward Ukraine is viewed as criticism of the Russian government, which is why the authorities cleared away the memorial. Flowers are taken away, then brought again, says this man. A human rights group says half a dozen people have been detained for visiting the memorial, including this woman who was sentenced to 12 days in jail. It's the latest example of a crackdown that's only become more punishing.
My favorite building in the world is CN Tower.
Ivan Losov shows off some of his Canada souvenirs from when he studied in Toronto. Losov, who lives in the Siberian city of Chita, is against the war, and the police came after him for posting online about a dream he had. He dreamt the Ukrainian army was going to kill him and other Russian men, but President Zelensky turned up and said this to him in his dream.
I know you good Russian man, good Russian man. Everybody here now is kills, we bombs Russian stuff, but you still alive.
For that post, he was fined the equivalent of 600 Canadian dollars. According to a Russian human rights group, he's one of at least 5,500 people who've been fined for protesting the war. Several hundred others are facing criminal charges for speaking out against what Russia still calls its special military operation. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
A night a police officer in Montreal will never forget. Coming up, we'll tell you about the emergency call he answered from the NHL.
We're sharing really important information with the public, and I feel like this is exactly what our job is, especially as the public broadcaster, especially in morning radio. That's incredibly important.
To Montreal now, where a police officer got a thrill of a lifetime when he was called on to be the backup goalie at an NHL game. The CBC's Kwabena Aduro has more.
This is what I wear every day. This is my job, and this is my passion.
Patrick Severefis is hoping to live out his childhood dream of playing NHL hockey. He came close last Thursday.
The fact that I got to dress and put on a jersey, like that was the moment where I went like, wow, okay, I'm really doing something. It's when they gave me the jersey, I'm like, I'm about to put on an NHL jersey, something I've dreamt on all my life.
Severefis is an emergency backup goalie, or EBUG. Every NHL arena has one, who attends each game just in case. In the event a goalie is injured, they could be called on to play for either team. Last Thursday, it was the Florida Panthers' Sergei Bobrovsky, and Severefis was told to suit up and head to the locker room.
It was really like a first-class experience. I felt like I was part of the Panthers organization for like just a moment, just a little moment.
Severefis never made it on the ice, but feels like he won, along with the Panthers, who beat the Canadiens 6-2.
Yeah, Patrick, he was in the room. We had him in the room in between periods. I just changed my language a little bit so he doesn't tell anybody that Coach swears a lot. That's all. Good guy. Patrick, he hang out with us. Yeah, we fed him after too.
This is not the first time an EBUG dressed for an NHL game. David Ayres, a Zamboni driver for the Toronto Maple Leafs, was the first to win. In nets for the Hurricanes, he saved 8 out of 10 shots he faced.
The next step is definitely getting to play and try to win, to try to beat out David Ayres, because not that I get annoyed or anything, but I'd like that people stop talking about David Ayres and they start talking about me at some point.
Although Severefis doesn't get paid for his services, he plans to do it as long as he can.
I don't think there's a word in the English language that would define or say the extent of how thankful I would be to realize that dream.
And he hopes when he finally makes it on the ice, it will be for the Bleu, Blanc et Rouge. Kwabena Aduro, CBC News, Mercier.
Sure, he didn't actually get to play, but what a cool experience, something he'll never forget, no doubt. Bringing us back to BC now, Saanich Police are welcoming the newest member of the force, a dog named Beacon. As an operational stress intervention dog, Beacon is trained to sense anxiety in staff and also comfort victims of crime during in-person interviews. The 2-year-old Black Lab was donated to Saanich Police by Wounded Warriors Canada and Vancouver Island Compassion Dogs. Meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe is back, and Joe, you're tracking this storm in eastern Canada.
That's right, Anita. I thought I would sort of, before I get to the drizzle in our forecast, soften us up with what's happening on the eastern half. Big snowstorm affecting millions tonight. If you haven't seen the pictures of snow on your friends and family's social media accounts, it's happening. Basically, this morning, snow swept in across southern Ontario. It's pushing through southern Quebec right now, and the top end just getting started for the Maritimes. But this storm coming down with such intensity that we're seeing thunder snow across places like Kingston. Totals for Toronto will be close to 20 centimeters for tomorrow morning, and Montreal more like 25 centimeters. Fredericton North more like 30 centimeters. So very much winter across the east. We've got our drizzle now to talk about in the forecast. Maybe some of you are hoping for the snow. We will talk about a chance in the long-range forecast. And we are getting some snow across the interior tonight with that north to south flow around that high pressure that's headed back out to sea. So drizzle for the south coast, some snow overnight for the interior. We clear out for Friday. Here's Friday's forecast. We're sort of in between that drizzle system and the Arctic cold front that really won't make its way down across BC until Saturday night. But this will affect the whole province, bringing clear, but cold weather starting Sunday. Now, as that cold front does track westward through Saturday night, it will bring a shot of snow to the interior. So heads up Saturday night, could be some wintry driving conditions across the mountain passes. Tomorrow, though, you hopefully get some sunny breaks, but looking for some flurries in places like Kelowna before warming up. So here's that Arctic air mass taking you through the weekend, and you can see it really just flirting with the west coast through Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday, it retreats back up a little bit, and that's, I think, our best chance at seeing some snow when we start to see warm air filter back in. We might get that collision zone for Wednesday. I don't see a big snowmaker at this point for the south coast. We'll keep my eye on some flakes. So drizzle all day. Hopefully, we may see some sunny breaks and an otherwise dry Friday. Looking good for Saturday before temperatures plummet Saturday night. Look at some of these overnight lows early next week. This is going to be an Arctic blast for sure, Anita, but it's not long-lived at this point.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Canada's two national airlines appear to be turning more of their attention to their regional services. Air Canada is scaling back its western routes, while WestJet is trimming down its eastern routes. The CBC's Kyle Bax explains how the companies are changing.
There has been quite a bit of attention on Air Canada making the decision to cut direct flights between Calgary and Saskatoon, and also between Calgary and Regina. We've heard of many other cancelled routes, so we dug a little deeper. We looked at the schedules of both Air Canada and WestJet and compared it to the same time of year in 2019. Since then, both airlines have cut dozens of routes. For instance, out of Calgary, Air Canada no longer flies directly to 9 different cities, such as Medicine Hat and Victoria. Meanwhile, WestJet has made quite a few cuts in eastern Canada, specifically between Toronto and Montreal. It has slashed the amount of seats by about 80%. The trend is pretty clear. WestJet prioritizing the prairies and Air Canada concentrating on the east, especially Toronto and Montreal. Part of the reason why is because of competition from smaller airlines. There are new entrants that have been launched, and some of the existing players are expanding. Experts say this strategy by Air Canada and WestJet helps fend off competition.
The Canadian industry is growing by the number of players, but there is some moves afoot by the established carriers to kind of say, okay, we will create our own little fortresses and we'll manage those fortresses and we'll try to build our strengths around those fortresses.
That's one reason why Air Canada and WestJet are becoming a bit more regional. The other consideration is financial. The airlines are still carrying debt from the pandemic, and air travel hasn't fully recovered. So the airlines are trying to keep expenses in check as they compete for passengers. And that's why the two dominant players are focusing so much on their home turfs. Kyle Bax, CBC News, Calgary.
Your baby is interested in them for a while, and then, inevitably they lose interest.
Coming up, the sharing economy for children's toys. 2 Ontario women find the answer to too many toys cluttering up playrooms. That story and more still to come.
I was 16 years old when I started. I had 1 dog, and that spring I got 2 more dogs. And then the next year I got, I think it was 5, and 8, and 12. Growing each year, breeding dogs, given to me. Last year I had 15, and this year I also have 15. I learned how to dog sit lots of different ways. All of it came together in culmination into one thing, what I do now. But, internet was a big help with that. I would watch videos, people dog sitting from all over the world, from Greenland, from Canada, Alaska, all those stuff. And I would look at certain things, and I'd see this, I would try it out myself. And another thing too is there was people throughout my life that would help me get dogs, like my mother, and and people showing me how to do things, what things are called, and how to properly take care of a dog, like growing up, feeding them, how to feed them. I've only been doing it for 5 years, 3 years full time, so I don't really have much experience, but I've noticed changes. My mother said, the ice used to freeze in September, like to the far islands, go seal hunting. Now we have to wait till October. It just keeps getting later every year, the freeze up, and then in the springtime usually, it comes a bit earlier, or the weather's like gotten more sporadic. It's all over the place. Like last year, that was the first time I ever hunted at the flowage, and that was really, really weird. Like it's always been frozen in the spring, right up until it breaks up. So yeah, it's changing. It does worry me, but maybe I hope by sharing it with my experiences, it'll educate people and show people that it is happening. That's the little part I can do. But other than that, I don't think I can directly stop it. So I'll just have to adapt and keep living my life.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
Celebrate the city's most impactful leaders with Anita Bathe at the annual Vancouver Magazine Power 50 Awards. Join the fun February 2nd at the Terminal City Club. Learn more and get tickets at vanmag.com. And never miss a special programming series, event, or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver inbox and keep connected with us.
After becoming a parent, it doesn't take too long before your home feels like it's full of toys. So 2 moms wanted to address that. So they've actually started a toy rental business. As Talia Ricci reports, the goal is to reduce clutter and be more sustainable.
Can you show everybody how you play with this one?
As is the case with most toddlers, this excitement is often short-lived. It's something this mom wanted to plan ahead for.
You get toys, your baby is interested in them for a while, and then, inevitably they lose interest. And in a traditional model where you're buying, you're stuck with that clutter. Let's say that he loved this.
Before her son was even born, she did some research online and came across the Toy Exchange Club. Basically, the idea is renting the toys instead of buying them.
I was overwhelmed with the idea of how to play with my child, and I also did not want to have my living room overrun with plastic and toy clutter.
For the founders, the idea was born out of their experience being moms, not wanting clutter around the house, but also wanting to keep toys out of the landfill.
So families receive a box of 7 to 8 toys for 3 months. They also receive with that box a guide on how to play with each toy and what development milestones your child should be reaching within that time period. At the end of the 3 months, families return the box in exchange for a new box of toys that are more challenging.
The toys are Montessori inspired. They're all wooden. They are curated specifically to support a child's age and developmental stage. I hope that we can sort of reframe the way that families think about toys, and the fact that toys are not, we don't need to own them, especially in those early years. They're outgrown so quickly.
As more people try to shop sustainably, the Toronto Environmental Alliance says businesses that focus on a sharing economy are becoming more popular. It's a trend that's happening in the clothing industry too.
When it comes to things like toys or even clothing, being able to share or borrow or rent them instead of owning it yourself is a really great way that we can reduce waste, save money, and reduce the environmental impact.
Hey, should we put these ones in?
Sonia hopes the idea inspires other parents to keep the planet in mind.
My hope is really that more families and more parents understand that there are options, and you don't have to sacrifice what you want for your children just because you want to do it sustainably.
Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
Yeah, I definitely know the feeling of having my living room cluttered up completely with toys. All right, switching gears now to Switzerland, where for 9 days every January, a normally sleepy and quiet village high in the Swiss Alps is filled with hot air. Anniversary of the Hot Air Balloon Festival. This year, there are 60 balloons from 15 countries participating. The popular event attracts up to 35,000 spectators. The area is known for winds that change direction during the day. They allow the balloons to fly out in one direction, and that's happening in the morning, and then in another direction in the afternoon. This year, the festival wraps up on Sunday. I've never been in a hot air balloon, and while it looks like an unforgettable experience, I don't think I can do it. I'm just gonna have to stick to skydiving. That is it for CBC Vancouver News tonight. We will see you tomorrow.